All right, all right, all right. Colin,
Yes.
what did Joey Ramone say?
Joey Ramone said, "Hey
Hey
ho,
ho,
let's
let's
go."
All right. Well, hey, welcome to another episode of Legends and Losers. And we have a special episode that's a two-parter, don't we, Colin?
We do have a two-parter. It's a twofer.
It's a twofer. And our dear friend, Rhonda Smith, put together a group of fantastic entrepreneurs, all of whom had read Play Bigger. And they wanted to get together and do a Q&A session with the old duder.
Yeah, the old duder.
Yeah, so we did that, and it was in the evening, and we were consuming scotch, and it went on for a while, and I think we had a great conversation about how to design a legendary business and a little bit about a legendary life. And and Rhonda's a great host, isn't she?
She's fantastic.
Yeah, she's the host of Cosmic Smith Radio, her podcast, which is a fun journey into all things cosmic and smithy.
Well, she's also a friend from the One Life Fully Lived community.
Yeah, I met Rhonda at one of the very early One Life events, and I gave a talk, and we connected after that, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, well,
But before we go there, I just saw this thing, a very interesting read on a website called the econotimes.com, written by a guy named Dimov. I think how you say his last name. The last name is Dimov. Dimov. I think, I don't know, kind of cool together. But anyway, here's the headline: Why ADHD can be a valuable bonus for entrepreneurs. Right? So you guys have heard us talk about how in any conversation with Colin and I, there can be multiple distractions and zebras and all sorts of nooks and crannies and rat
nooks and crannies.
nooks and
Nooks and
crannies.
crannies. Where'd you get the nooks and crannies from?
I don't know. That's how the old ladies say. Oh, look at the house has a lot of nice nooks and crannies in it, doesn't it?
No, that's from an ad for Thomas's English Muffins.
What? I've never even heard of Tom's English Muffins.
Thomas's English Muffins.
Oh, Thomas's. Excuse me. Thomas likes the formal. Don't he gets pissed when you call him Tom.
Thomas's English Muffins is the standard. It's like the English muffin.
Oh,
and in their ad, they talk about how awesome their English muffin is because it has so many nooks and crannies.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I think it's more of an old lady term. Maybe they're using it in their marketing. Anyway, so we have when you have ADHD, you can have a lot of nooks and crannies in your head, as that discussion just clearly shows. But now we have scientific, hey, don't fuck with me on the data. We have data here and research. So let me just,
the duder's got data.
Hey, everybody knows I'm a data guy. So let me share with you some data here.
Okay.
By Demo. Quote, entrepreneurship is about moving forwards. It involves branching out, a search for the new, starting a journey in which the destination is unknown. In a sense, then, it is not an entirely rational process.
I'll give you that.
Isn't starting Equity Directory, hasn't that been an entirely rational process, Colin?
It's like a roller coaster.
And so he says, in which actions are driven by considerations of consequences. Instead, entrepreneurship requires a certain impulsiveness. You don't have any impulsiveness, do you? And an ability to act without fear of consequence. It takes courage to be legendary, my friends. Then he says, precisely the symptoms seen in people diagnosed with ADHD. Where are my keys? And then he says, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is a common neurodevelopment psychological disorder characterized by problems with focus, impulsivity, and high activity level. Why are these problems? Lack of I don't know. I've been doing this for the better part of 50 years. It's normally associated with a range of negative consequences such as crime, social exclusion. What is social exclusion? And here's one for you. You ready for this?
Being outcast, I suppose.
Academic underperformance.
Well, you scored, didn't you?
I have a black belt in academic underperformance.
You scored very high.
So these are all the supposedly negative comments, or excuse me, the negative characteristics, problems with ADHD. But then Demo goes on to say, in an entrepreneurial context, we have found it's a condition which brings clear advantages. Our recent study into the experiences of entrepreneurs with ADHD offers a glimpse into a different kind of thinking and acting. How do you like that?
I like that. Let's explain more. Tell me more about this.
Well, he says entrepreneurship research has a strong bias towards positive personal characteristics and positive outcomes. Meanwhile, research on ADHD has tended to focus on its negative consequences. So he's saying that we need to focus on the positive, because our study sets out to explore the possible advantages that aspects of ADHD bring. One key point was that impulsivity leads to bold business choices, undeterred by unknown consequences, such as buying a business on the spot. Acting without thinking places intuition and gut feelings at center stage. So I think he's advocating that acting without thinking is good for entrepreneurs.
Well, I think that there maybe acting, trusting your gut, I think might be a more positive spin on that.
Well, and the ability to take chances without concern for the consequences, that every entrepreneur does that. And then he says, this might be my favorite line in the whole thing. Impatience triggers proactive behaviors and a constant churn of new ideas, Colin. So I think with that, maybe we turn to our dialogue with Rhonda and friends for a constant churn of new ideas.
Here we go.
Good. So welcome everybody to this amazing call with Christopher Lochhead. It is such an honor to get to have made so many amazing connections in the last 4 years and to get to share them with people, because I feel very blessed at all the amazing people that have come in my path and made themselves available to me. And as we move forward, I want to share all of that with all of you and continue to give everybody access to people so that we can all grow and become more. Today we're talking about category design and play bigger and whatever else comes up, who knows. And why this book one is the first one, and why Christopher I wanted him to be the first one in this series that I'm doing, is because this book changed my life. And I don't mean it changed my business. It did change my business too, but it also changed my life. It was finally this piece I needed to be able to step into myself fully and be okay with what I was creating was going to be weird and maybe not received by a lot of people, and totally myself. And I've been wanting to create this for a long time. And this book kind of gave me, I don't want to say permission, but it kind of showed me that it was okay for me to come out and be very different in what I was going to do. So with that being said, this episode is being recorded. If you don't want your question involved, just your question in, just let us know and we'll have it edited out. This is Q&A style. It's also conversation, so don't be shy. And if you don't have questions yet, you will. So just find yourself engaged, write notes, and start. Because once Lochhead starts, it's like we're going on for a ride. So Chris, thank you so much for doing this. We so appreciate your time and the opportunity to change our lives through your work.
Thanks, Rhonda. I think you're fucking awesome.
I think you're fucking awesome. Yeah. So why don't we talk about some category design? Everybody should have had at least read chapters 1 through 3 and chapter 10. I did put in my email, if you have to fake it to make it to join, do that still too. So, we won't judge or throw things at you. Well, we might, but we won't do it hard. And so, maybe talk to us a little bit about category design, just to kind of warm us up and get us going in the conversation.
Yeah. So off the top, I'd say at a very high level, people in business, or frankly in life, in your career in life, make an unconscious choice. And that choice is to attack an existing space, an existing market, an existing category. And when you take a step back, you say, listen, every product or service that we love exists because a legendary innovator or entrepreneur, in, if you will, category design speak, prosecuted the magic triangle. They got product/service, company/business model, and category right at the right time. And a lot of people don't even realize that you can actually be the designer of the category. And it's interesting. Recently, I shot an episode of Legends and Losers that's not out yet, but I highly, highly encourage you to listen to it, and we'll wait for it as it comes out. Sean, I see you're here. It's one you're going to fucking love, buddy. It's with my mentor, and his name is Bix Bixen. And I met Bix when I was 18 years old, and my life can be, and it's when I sort of did the first big personal development training program that I did. Bix was my leader of the program. And I'm going to talk about it if you like, but, and so I had him on Legends and Losers. He's been out of my life for 30 years, and I found him this past spring. And I have him back in my life in a very powerful way. I could describe that to you if you give a shit. But anyway, he said something in our dialogue on Legends and Losers that nails category design. And he said that most people are living in someone else's thinking. And so what we forget is that a category either got intentionally designed or it got designed by accident, often by customers. But make no mistake, like we say in the book, position yourself or be positioned. And so before Clarence Birdseye, there's food and canned food. And now we have I think it's around 50 billion in the US, if I'm remembering correctly, a $50 billion industry called frozen food. I'll give you, another one of my favorite examples right now. As some of you know, I live in Santa Cruz, California, and I think a law was passed about maybe 2 years ago that said that every 2 weeks a new craft beer place has to open. And so one opened just a couple blocks from me very recently, and I don't know the guys. I'm pretty sure it's guys, and I don't know this for sure, but I live in Santa Cruz, so I'm pretty sure they're potheads. And so a couple of potheads who opened a brew pub, when they opened it up, it's in one of these kind of old school strip malls that you've all seen in California. And at the entrance to the mall, the parking lot of the mall, they put up a flag, one of those long flags. And the flag says craft beer. Now, what it doesn't say is Rhonda and Brian's brew pub. So what I'm sharing with you is that what I'm guessing is two male potheads in Santa Cruz understood enough about category design to intuitively get that for their business to be successful, they needed to grab hold of or position themselves inside of the biggest trend, the biggest growth category in beer today, which is craft beer. And so they made a decision to market the category with their sign, not their brand. And I'm positive, well, I don't know if they've read the book, but I fucking doubt it, okay? My guess is they intuitively understood this, right? And so what I'm saying to you is categories are everywhere. And once you obtain the lens, the category design lens, you see categories everywhere. I'll give you another simple example I've been thinking about lately. Dentists. What you don't see is a sign that says Rhonda Smith, DDS. That's not what you see. What you see is a sign that says family dentistry, or even just a sign that says dentist. Well, dentist is a category of doctor. And then underneath the giant bold thing that says dentist, it says Rhonda Smith, DDS. And so even your average dentist who knows shit about marketing and category design, I assume, understands that when they put up a sign, they market their category first and their brand second. They do that intuitively. And so what I would say to you is that categories are constructs. They're ways of thinking about problems and solutions and the value associated with those problems and solutions. And that gets set up. Somebody designs that either on purpose or by accident. So that's kind of point A. Point B is when we make the unconscious choice to position ourselves or our business inside of an existing category, to quote Bix, we're living in somebody else's thinking, and in particular, thinking about our fuck business, about the problem, the solution, and the value of solving that problem with that solution. Somebody else set that up. And you have to therefore live by their rules. And here's what I know, because I spent 30 years studying it. That's not what Henry Ford did. That's not what Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, did. That's not what Clarence Birdseye, the category designer of frozen food, did. That's not what Henry Ford did. That's not what Steve Jobs did. That's not what Mark Zuckerberg did. That's not what Tim Rhode did to become the category king of realtors in Manteca, California. That's not what he did. He didn't market his brand. So legends do two things where most of us do, legends do three things where most of us do two things. So most of us think the way to be successful in business is essentially we got two big levers to pull: product or service, depending on the business that we're in, and company. So I build a legendary product. I build a legendary company to deliver that product. And when the world sees my product, all will be good. Well, that's not fucking true. Because the world might get it or they might not. And what most people call marketing is screaming features. The other thing I'll say off the top, Rhonda, is I am now in a place where when I hear somebody talk about personal branding, I want to punch them in the face.
Welcome to my industry.
And at the risk of sounding immodest, I know how to punch people in the face, and I'm very good at it. But I don't punch anybody in the face unless we're on the mat. And I have full permission to do so, as they do with me. That's a whole other discussion. But what I'm saying to you is the personal branding in the absence of category design is a giant fuck waste of time. And I can explain very simply why. Kodak is a legendary brand. No one gives a fuck. Dell is a legendary brand. No one gives a fuck. Categories make brands, not the other way around. In 1999, Michael Dell was on the cover of every magazine you could imagine. He was the hottest guy, or certainly one of the hottest guys in tech. And if you think about the Magic Triangle, he had a great company, amazing company. A big part of his differentiation was the direct model. It was Dell Direct was the mantra for years. Most computer companies sold through a dealer channel back then. Very revolutionary. And then ultimately did that over the internet. And they sold servers, laptops, and desktops. Fast forward 17 years, the company sells servers, laptops, and desktops. And no one gives a fuck. And the company's in tremendous trouble. And the reason for that is category violence. See, the cloud, virtualization, social, mobile, and a whole bunch of other, the Internet of Things, all these new categories and technologies inside these new categories have shown up, and they shifted the priority in the technology world from the categories Dell is in to a whole bunch of new categories. And so Dell has a legendary brand. They absolutely do. And it doesn't matter because categories make brands. And so I guess what I'll summarize off the top. Number one, if we're playing somebody else's game, we're living inside somebody else's thinking and rules about that game. Rules about problems and solutions and the value they deliver. And the degree to which we buy the bullshit about personal branding is the degree to which we're confused about how to actually truly differentiate ourselves and build a legendary career in business.
Wow. It's so everything that I ever learned in all of my coaching and all the programs in the last 3 years was just build your brand, build your brand, build your brand. So thank you for destroying that for me.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much.
You won't continue to do retarded things in your business.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
No, and think about it, right? So branding is all about screaming your name and maybe some features, but really branding is all about screaming your name and your logo and maybe a tagline. Well, guess what? You and I get between 40 to 60,000 marketing messages a day now. Never mind all the emails and tweets and Donald Trump tweets and alternative news, etc. So our brains have gotten very, very sophisticated about filtering all this stuff out. And we get very good at, oh, that's not for me. And so when you're screaming Rhonda Smith, Rhonda Smith, Rhonda Smith, if I don't have a context for Rhonda Smith, you're just another one of the 60,000 messages. And I pay no attention to it. I'm not a dad. I don't have kids. So if you are branding, you're marketing minivans to me, no. I don't fucking hear it. You're the parents in a fucking Peanuts cartoon. Wow, 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 wow. I can't tell you what the features are of minivans or what's the best mini. I don't know any of that shit. Because you know what I pay attention to? Muscle cars. Because that's what I like. Okay? Now, if you want to talk about branding muscle cars, I'm stoked on that category. But the degree to which Chrysler spends money branding their minivan, the Chrysler Caravan, to me, that's called lighting money on fire. And so the brand only matters if the category matters to me or to you. And so the trick is, how do I design a category around a problem that matters? And then I'm actually marketing the category, not my brand.
I have a question, actually. So we're talking about don't shout your brand, don't shout your brand. We're talking about Rhonda Smith's brand, et cetera, et cetera. How does somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk, right, who, to me, he's just a big personal brand. Obviously, he's dove into a category, but his personal brand, I believe, stands above, VaynerMedia and all that other stuff. What did he do differently, and how does somebody kind of like, how does he fit into a category, if we want to break it down that way?
Yeah, very good. Gary, I respect him tremendously. He and I actually have the same publisher, which is kind of mind-blowing. Yeah, yeah, I'm like, really? So he is the new Tom Peters, right? So he lives in a category called business guru, entrepreneurial guru. That's the category, right? And he's done a legendary job branding himself, no question. Nobody is better at self-promotion than that guy. Now, by the way, it's too much for me.
Yeah.
That's for me personally. Because it's Gary believes in branding so much, he screams Gary. And what he's losing is what made him Gary Vaynerchuk, which is his point of view. And so he has a legendary point of view about how to build a business in the modern digital social age. And he's got amazing content about that. He's actually a fucking genius about that because he fucking did it. And how all this started is he started to share the shit that he learned by building the wine business in this new social, mobile, digital, podcast, et cetera, world. And so he's got an incredible point of view about how entrepreneurs can seize the day in this new paradigm and build their business. And that is incredibly valuable and worth listening to. And I wish Gary would spend more time there as opposed to screaming, look at me, look at me. That's just, for me personally, I respect the shit out of him. But make no mistake, he sits in a category called guru, entrepreneurial business guru for the digital age, right? And if there wasn't a problem called you and I want that, there wouldn't be any need for a solution called Gary Vaynerchuk. Does that make sense, Justin?
Totally. It makes perfect sense. And I mean, I think that's, I mean, you really broke it down to there's at some point there was a category created for that, and he just completely owns it, which makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the old Gary Vaynerchuk is probably Michael Gerber. So in a lot of ways, Gary Vaynerchuk is Michael Gerber 2.0, Michael Gerber for the social digital age. He positioned himself inside a category called business guru for small to medium, for entrepreneurial businesses. And the guy who is the category king in the prior era of that is Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth. And if you haven't read the E-Myth, like, get off this fucking call and read the email. Stop listening to me and read that book.
That's so funny. Well, on that note, what are a couple of other, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
No, I was actually going to say, I've heard Gary talk a bit about how his personal brand actually isn't really, kind of like how that's just sort of a side thing, that it's a massive side thing. But, his real, the real core business being on the corporate side. And, he's saying something like 128 million in that this year. And that's probably a completely different category, would be my guess. Would you say, Chris, that isn't even exposed to most of us, just entrepreneurs at our level?
Yeah, that he plays in a whole, he's got, I don't know all of his businesses. I don't follow him actively. I mean, I respect the shit out of him, but he's not a guy that I like follow his shit. So I don't know I know he's got a wine business, and I don't know what else he does, but yeah, he's got other shit going. And those are in different categories.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How do we share our personal opinion? How do we share our personal perspective in our businesses, in our categories, especially like in coaching, for example, and not have something like Uber that just happened where politically they were sharing or choosing how they feel politically, and then it affected their businesses. So is there like a rule of thumb? Is there somewhere in the gray that we should stay? Like, how much is too much? Because I'm getting ready to share a bunch of really personal stuff publicly, because I think we need to start talking about things.
So I think that's a decision we all have to make. It's an individual decision. What I would share with you is, first of all, you can't unring the bell. Mm-hmm. So be very smart about what you're going to do here. Number two, those of us on this call who are, the new fuck word is solopreneurs. So the degree to which you're a solopreneur, I'll use to quote the Big Lebowski, in the parlance of our times, if you're a solopreneur, that's a decision that you've got to make. Here's what I'd tell you about that, because I've just had to live through this with the launch of Legends and Losers, and it in a lot of ways it was the most personally confronting thing I've ever done in the business world. Although Legends and Losers isn't a business for me, but so I don't know what to call it. But because it involves so many people I've met through business, that it's got that dynamic. But so here's what I'd say. I think what people are craving for today is authenticity, particularly from a solopreneur, but even from a brand. And I think when most people go to work on authenticity, what they're really doing is, I don't know what that was. It sounded like somebody just got paddled on the ass.
Or dogs flapping theirs.
Somebody doing something kinky here? Move the camera and show us what's going on. Whack, whack, whack.
I think I had a conversation with someone about this yesterday. Who was it?
So I think when people say authenticity, what they mean is a more clever way to bullshit people. Sometimes the unspoken is louder than the spoken. And so I think you have to decide what you want to share and what you don't. And I think no matter what you do, you have to make it really authentic as opposed to bullshit authentic. Mm-hmm. and I'll share with you my experience in this with launching Legends and Losers. Our first couple episodes, if I'm remembering right, came out on a Thursday. And that Tuesday night, I had, for the first time in my life that I can remember, like as long as I can remember, what you might call a panic attack. Because I thought, holy fuck, am I about to make the biggest fool out of myself? Because my whole career, 70, 80, 90% of anything I've ever dealt with, talked about, written about, spoke about, whatever, was what you might call intellectual capital or content, or, and then I would inject myself and my life, 10, 20, maybe 30% of whatever, if I go do a speech, I gave a speech yesterday, and, most of it's about category design, and I interject some shit about my life to make it fun and to connect with people and be a human being with people. But it's, 80% content around category design and 20% a little bit about my life. And Legends and Losers, I don't know what the mix is, but it's at least 50-50. So I'm sharing my life. And I had a fucking panic attack about that, because I no longer have a governor on me. I'm not the chief marketing officer of a publicly traded company. That person needs to behave in a certain way, even if you're me. And even at Play Bigger, the company, we were 3 guys. And even though I was, quote unquote, the lead singer, I'm still representing the band in everything I do. And Al and Dave are very different than me. And so I have to be respectful that Play Bigger as the company is not me. And so I have to respect that. And so the panic attack I had was around, fuck, this is actually the first thing I've done in my adult life that's kind of 100% me. And that was absolutely terrifying. On the flip side of that, we're now, I think, 3 weeks in. What I would, and when I say panic, I mean panic. I'm not kidding. I'm like thinking of not doing it, like pulling everything, like as close to freaking out as I ever get. And this is not who I am. I mean, I'm somebody who, if you said to me, hey, Christopher, can you go speak in front of 5,000 people kind of right now? I'd say, okay, how long do I have? I mean, I can go do that. And when I go to do those things, I wouldn't even say it's nervousness. I feel something because I wanna deliver my best to those people. So there's an anticipation that you might connect to nervousness, but that doesn't make me nervous. And so it was an incredibly unusual experience for me to have actual fear, like real fuck fear. And I didn't, with Legends and Losers, I did not do what most people say to do, which is, hey, if you're going to do something like this, just tiptoe into it. And no, a month before Legends and Losers, I had changed everything. My Facebook, my LinkedIn, like my world, if you didn't know it was coming, you weren't paying attention, right? Like I fucking did a cannonball off the goddamn high diving board, right? And so I'm realizing this and I'm absolutely terrified. And what I've realized, long story longer on the backside, is the reason I was terrified was the level of authenticity and the level of openness was far beyond anything I'd done in any kind of a public forum before. And so to get back to your question, Rhonda, I think we all have to find where that authenticity is. Oh, and I'll share one other thing. When we, both Colin and I, sent out emails to everybody in our contact lists. You guys may have got the emails as well as the Facebook post. And Colin had written up one, and I saw he did that first, and then I wrote up mine. When he saw mine, he said, fuck, yours is way better than mine. Can I use yours? And I said, sure. Because A, I'm a sharing guy, and B, the CMO in me says, awesome, we're like, this is what you do. You align the messages and you drop the same bombs on the same targets. And his emails went out before mine did. And then I realized something. oh, fuck. That's totally fucking inauthentic. Because he used my words. We can't ever do that again. Because I'm not up to some fucking trick with this thing. There's nothing, I don't even give a fuck about selling books. Okay. Amazon just lowered the price of my book to $15.77. There's 4 authors, an agent, and a publisher. I might make, like, after tax 5 cents. Like, I make no fucking money off that book. It doesn't matter. Right. So I'm not up to anything. I'm doing this because A, I want to make a difference, and B, I want to have fun, and C, I want to do it with people that I love. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's it. And so to have an inauthentic communication in the world made me want to shit myself. And so I had to rewrite my email because it actually couldn't be like Colin's email. So anyway, that's a long answer, Rhonda, but I think you got to decide what you want to share. And my personal experience is if you want to be open and vulnerable and authentic, it's probably going to give you a bit of a panic attack. And in my case, it was a very, very real thing. And it's not a feeling I'm used to. It's not a feeling. This is not who I am. I'm a goddamn warrior and I slay fucking giants for a living. I am not a pussy in the corner, like freaking out. Like, there was not enough pot in Santa Cruz to calm me down that Tuesday night.
Well, that's so funny. You know me, like, I live very much in my truth. I don't lie. I don't do little white lies. I don't do any of that stuff. And it really puts me in a space of having to always be in total authenticity. So that's pretty much the category I have designed for myself and for the people that coach with me, is to learn to live that way. So I have a lot of coaches in my life and people in my life who are like, I don't know if you should share that. And, you know.
So you got to look, you got to decide. Now I'll share with you 2 other Legends and Losers experience about this with guests. One I'll name, one I won't name. So I had a guest come on. He's a brilliant guy. I don't know him that well, but I've known him for a while. And I know how brilliant he is, and he's got a lot of incredible things to share. And so he came on the show, and it felt like to me every 5 seconds he kept veering into politics. And to say he's not a Trump supporter would be an understatement. And I tried to keep getting him off it. Anyway, we're still looking at the show to see if it's editable, but I sort of already know the answer, which is we have to retape the show, because we actually don't edit Legends and Losers. I mean, we'll edit a little thing here and there, but the experience I'm hoping that people have is exactly what my friend Tom Schwab said, which is it's 3 a.m., you're in an IHOP, and there are these fucking dudes in the booth behind you, and there's this conversation going on, and you're like, what the and to quote our producer, Matt Johnson, he said, Legends and Losers drills into your ear. He said, if you listen to Legends and Losers for 2 minutes, I challenge you to take the headphones off. And so that's the experience that we want people to have, right? And so anyway, what I already know, because I'm trying to find out, we're figuring out what Legends and Losers is in real time, right? And what it's not. And so when we shot this episode and this dialogue with this guy, afterwards I was like, that's not a conversation we're going to have. And the reason for it is, A, I know, and I'll speak for myself, that I'm going to alienate a lot of people anyway. And that's okay with me. But I don't want to alienate them on politics. I'm not an expert there. I have opinions just like everyone else, but I'm not stupid enough to think that I'm an expert there. I'm not an expert on is peace in the Middle East. I have an opinion about that. The shit we talk about, at least some of it, I'm an expert on.
Right.
And the other thing, probably more importantly, is I already know in the discovery of what Legends and Losers is and isn't, that we are a respite from the political discussion. I want you to be able to press play on your iPhone and to not have to worry that you're going to hear any of that shit. Because we're, particularly at this time, we're living at a time where that shit's everywhere. So that's sort of one example of a, if you will, Rhonda, a boundary. The flip side of that is there's an upcoming episode with a guy named Skip Jansen. And Skip and I have known each other for over a decade, well over a decade. And he's one of the most legendary people I know. He's one of the most admirable men I know. And if you said to me, what's the definition of a legendary man? He would be right there. And he's an incredibly successful executive. He's an unbelievable husband and father. And he's one of the greatest guys you could ever spend any time with. The episode of Legends and Losers with Skip starts off with Skip saying, I was a loser until I was 38. And I say, why, Skippy? And he says, well, I became an alcoholic at 11. And I said to him, oh, so you started late. And that's the beginning of the dialogue. And he has as raw a conversation, Rhonda, about addiction as you can have. However, it's a funny conversation. We laughing through the whole thing. And the truth is, and this is what I'm going to say when we shoot the intro, it's actually not a conversation about addiction and overcoming that. It's not. It is, but what it's really about is life design. Mm-hmm. At 38 years old, Skip Jansen says, fuck this. The current architecture of my life sucks. He finally gets it. After years, his father tried to get him an A. I mean, years and years and years. His family wrote him up. He was a fucking, a serious loser, like a douchebag fucking loser. And you would never know it today, right? And so the story is really about life design. And it's an amazing story. And he's so open and honest and raw. And it's funny and it's fun. And the end of the conversation is me saying to Skip, I love you, Skippy. And he says, I love you, Chris. That's how the conversation ends. And so, so what's my point? My point is a very hard boundary for me on politics. Not okay. I just don't want to have it. Mm-hmm. Not here. And yet a giant boundary on an authentic, real, open, but not heavy. It's not, I'm not interested in I'm listening to the show and I want to kill myself. No, this is just fucking life. I believe what Richard Bach said. It's all an illusion. So let's just fucking have some fun with the fact that we were a loser till we were 38, right? Let's come on. Can we just have some fucking fun with that? And we do. And so my point in all that is, whether it's a podcast or your life or your business, we have to find where we want to put those boundaries, those rails. And inside those rails, I think we live in a time where people crave something real. There's so much bullshit. We're being manipulated in so many ways. And even if you forget that, we live in this Twitter Kardashian fuck world, right? This 140 character bullshit. And I hate that I have to know who that fucking chick is. Why do I have to know that, right? Why do I turn on goddamn CNN and they fucking are telling me what happened last night on The Bachelorette? That's not fucking news.
No.
Right? I don't care about that. Why do I have to know that? Fuck mute, right? And so because of all that shit, I think we're at a unique point in history where people want shit that's actually real, not shit that looks like it's real because of a manipulation, right, but shit that's real. And so that's a long answer, Rhonda, but we have to decide where we want to put our boundaries in our personal life and in our business life. And I think inside those boundaries, we want to do everything possible to have what my dear friend Bix Bixen calls the background conversation in the foreground, which really means an authentic conversation. And I can describe what Bix means if you like.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. What is it, really quick, what is it about the age of 38? I was 38 when I quit being a total fucking loser. And they talk about that in Think and Grow Rich, that if you haven't figured it out by that age, that you figure it out by the age of 38. Just saying.
Yeah, I don't know. The eights are weird for me. I started my first company at 18. I was a chief marketing officer of a publicly traded software company at 28. At 38, I threw it all away. I got divorced. I after we sold Mercury, I left the business world, fucked off to Tahoe, and tried to retire the first time. And then I really retired again at 48. So I don't know. There's something about the eights.
Completely.
You know, so you had talked about your podcast and the direction it's going in, and it's kind of slowly becoming what it's supposed to be. So the reason I probably have come up with 10,000 questions is because I also host a podcast. And we've had Jarek Robbins on, who's Tony Robbins' son. And he, we asked him, is there anything off limits? It's a question we always ask before we go into the interview because we don't want to cross any lines and we don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. And he goes, yeah, my dad's off limits. And as we kind of built conversation with him and got comfortable, he essentially ended the interview saying that his dad sucked at being a dad and he didn't feel loved by his father until he learned how to get love from his father. So in that moment, there was a great shift in understanding of, like, if you go back to every episode before that interview, it's completely different than every episode after that because there was so much power and magic behind that vulnerability. And so my question is it possible to build a brand now? I know we said we don't talk about brands, but let's talk about brands. So,
no, we could absolutely talk about brands. I'm a fucking CMO. I know a little bit about brands.
Justin doesn't give a shit. Justin's like, fuck it, I'm talking about brands.
That's right.
I don't, to quote Archie Bunker, misconstrue anything I said. I love brands. I love branding. I would be immodest enough to tell you, Justin, I'm a master fucking sensei in branding. I just think branding in the absence of category design is retarded. Branding in the context of a category design strategy, fuck yeah.
Love it. Okay. So my question is this. We're talking about, like you said, most of the people on this call are probably solopreneurs, whatever that word means, right? Is it possible to build a brand around yourself without being 100% vulnerable or 100% real?
Yeah, I think most people are fucking inauthentic. So absolutely. It's not, what would fire me up, but how many people have you met? If we think about Sean in the speaking world and all that, like most people in that world, look, how many speeches have you guys heard in your life?
Tons.
Yeah.
Whoever has a party behind them, hit mute, please.
Yes, please. I was just going to say that.
And isn't it funny that, like, you'll go hear particularly some self-actualization, human development, personal development, so whatever the fuck you want to call all that stuff, human potential guru go talk, and like every fifth word is I. Right? And so, and yet they have a career doing that. So I think you can do that. I don't think it works as well anymore because I think people see through it better. I know enough about millennials to know that if they smell that shit, they go running. But listen, bullshit baffles brains. So yeah, you can do that.
Hey, I got a question. Brian and I talked about this actually with you, Chris, and I kind of want to, I don't know if anybody else saw the chats and stuff that were going on in there, but we talked a couple weeks ago about how come, like, legendary people, I guess in different areas, how come we don't hear about their legendary status? Like, I mean, I'm not in the tech world, so I wouldn't know who's legendary in the tech world. And, everybody knows Tony Robbins. Everybody knows Elon Musk, even if you're not in the tech world. I mean, Elon Musk is everywhere. How does someone become legendary? I mean, in your own eyes, I mean, what makes somebody legendary and designs a legendary category?
It's a great question. So by definition, anybody who becomes a category king is legendary because less than 1% of businesses are category kings. And even if you're like I know douchebags who've built category kings. There's a lot of them. Like guys I wouldn't want to spend 5 fucking seconds in the same room with as human beings, but I deeply respect and admire what they did by creating a category and building a category king. So, you know, you could be a douchebag and do that. So I think anybody, whether you're Elon Musk here or Tim Rode here, if you designed a category that you then went on to dominate in a business context, I'm not talking about life. We can talk about life outside of business if you want. But in a business context, that person, by definition of becoming a category king, is absolutely fucking legendary and worthy of admiration, in my opinion, and listening to. Doesn't make them a good person. The guy that started Uber, best I can tell, is a giant fucking douchebag. And on a personal level, I don't want to spend any time with that guy because he's a fucking douchebag. But what he did is legendary, and I respect the shit out of him. Does that make sense, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. And just like a quick one, is there like a list of categories? Or I mean, how would you know if you design a category or that frozen food is a category? I mean, a car is a category. Like, I mean, where would you find like a list of categories? I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
You mean how would you understand what's a category and what's not?
Yeah, right. Like, how do I know? I mean, is it like the professions are like dentists and doctors? I mean, I think those would be all like medical staffs. I mean, that would be a category. Or
those are
cars
categories.
Would be, right. So how do you know what's a category?
Anything that is a description of a classification of products, services, or people, by definition, is a category. So like, all a category really is a mental filing system. And there's interconnectedness, right? So I'll give you a simple example. If I say to you car, well, that's a category because that's a bucket, that's a classification of a vehicle. And vehicle is a bigger interpretation of a bigger category. So vehicle could include truck, and you could argue that a boat's a vehicle and like that. And so, but if you let's take a car for a second, and then I say to you, spark plug. We all understand that what a car is as distinct from a truck. And we all understand what a spark plug is as distinct from a wheel. And we know the difference between a wheel and a tire. So my point is, a category is a way of distinguishing something from something else. And in the domain of business and commerce, categories are interconnected. So when someone says car, we understand that's part of the auto industry. And we understand there's different kinds of cars, and there's sports cars, and there's sedans, and there's convertibles, and et cetera, right? And so anything that's a classification of a bucket of product or service, or even of people, right? You could argue male, female is a categorization of human being. And so anything that is a folder in which you put something, so that you can, it's just like the filing system on all of our computers, right? And so it's the way we relate to information. And here's another way to think about it, Sean. If I say to you, hey, oh man, I just found this new product, Zoom, and I'm using it and I'm loving it. And these fucking guys at Zoom built this great technology, and I'm doing all my podcasts with it, and now I'm doing meetings with it. And you know what? I even send people Zoom emails because, like, I'm a verbal guy, I'm dyslexic, and it occurred to me, like, you know, for example, I got an email today from my mother that's about the length of fucking War and Peace, right? And God damn it, Jackie, okay, now I got to deal with this, right? So I start to go fucking write a response to deal with all of it, and I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to do what I always do now, which is I'm going to, you know, fucking respond with a Zoom. Now, if I say all that to you and you don't know what Zoom is, what are you going to say? You're on mute, John.
Yeah.
You're going to say, hey, what the fuck is Zoom?
What is Zoom? What are you talking about? Yeah.
And whatever I say next, that's my attempt at a category. And unfortunately, the fucks at Zoom haven't done category design. So they haven't told me what to say to you or you to say to me when I get stoked about their product. I got to make it up. And I'm going to have a conversation with them about that, because if you think about the legendary, the magic triangle, they got product right. I have no idea about company. I'm assuming they get it right because they're funded by one of the most legendary venture capitalists in history, Sequoia Capital. And what I do know is they're fucking up the category in a royal way, and it would be a tragedy for this product to die because they got category design wrong. That's a whole other conversation. But my point is, the first thing that you and I say when somebody starts describing a person or product is, well, if I say to, hey, Sean, I went to this restaurant, this new restaurant in Santa Cruz last night. It was awesome. We had a great time. And I start telling you all about it. At some point, if I don't say it, you're probably going to say, well, hey, what type of restaurant is it? That's called tell me what category it is, because I relate to the category first and the brand or the product or the service second. So when you're telling me about the restaurant, I need you to tell me, oh, it's a Mexican restaurant. That's called a category.
Perfect. Thank you.
I want to check in on time just because I want to be very respectful, Chris. And I think we talked about an hour, but we're approaching that. So I don't know if anybody, how many more questions we have or what we have. I just want to check in on time.
So just so you know, Rhonda, this conversation and having fun with people I love is the thing that matters most in my life. Mm-hmm. So I could give a fuck that we're coming up on 6 o'clock.
Perfect.
That's just me.
No, and I know that about you. And when you offered to do this, I knew that was like, you're like, I just want to talk about it and grab whoever you can and whatever. So do that. So I just wanted to check in. But so who else? Questions? Come on, this is your chance. Chris, go.
Hey, Chris, I got a fucked up scenario. So I own a company called Kick-Ass Media, and I love the name. We're a printing company, but we're in this weird space where we've never really known exactly how to describe what it is that we actually do. So and it feels kind of like we're pussyfooting around some kind of category, but I don't know what that is. And I hate using the word printing because that never feels like it describes it. So, I'm not going to go deep into our technical details, but I guess like I'm stumbling on language, probably of a question to ask, but what is that? Do you think that that's a common thing where a company will be sort of creating something, kind of confused about what they're doing? We're consistently, for probably about 3 years, when we talk to our customers, we don't even really know how to say exactly what it is that we do, but they search our products and we're growing like crazy. And so, I've hired a marketing person recently, and she comes in and she's like, oh, I'm going to help. We're going to figure this out. And we're changing our tagline like it's our underwear. And we're trying to find what that looks like. And then when I heard you speak, I was at Whistler. I'm like, dude, this is it. Like, this is the thing. And also, by the way, I'm coming down to the workshop here at the end of the month, which I'm stoked about. I don't know. What's your thoughts on all that?
Do I hear a little bit of an out and about going on there, Chris?
Maybe.
Where are you from?
Could be, eh?
Where are you from, eh?
A couple hours outside Toronto.
What town? I lived in Toronto for years.
Do you know Prince Edward County? That area? Like 2 hours, like near Belleville?
Oh, I know where Belleville is. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right there. I'm like on the outskirts of a town with about 1,000 people. So absolutely middle of nowhere.
Got it. So a question just to soak in this for a second. It sounds like, Chris, do you spend more time talking about what you're not than what you are?
I don't even know how to answer that one. I think that I did. I think now it's more just about connecting products with customers.
Yeah.
I think I'd focus on that.
Yeah. So that's look. I'll just say this directly. That's not what you want to do. A product conversation is the wrong conversation. So,
like, let me give you a couple more
yeah,
details.
sure, go.
So, I just sort of stumbled into this thing, and at one time, the original idea was to do stuff for bands and musicians. And I realized the ones I was connected to were eating craft dinner and hot dogs. That didn't work out. It was kind of an evolution of survival from there.
Hey, that was my entire childhood right there. Craft dinner and hot dogs.
Right. So you were my
for you Americans, that's called mac and cheese.
Mac and
but
cheese.
the cheese. Chris, could you describe that powder in the cheese?
It's powder, but it turns into this magic sauce. It's like it turns into something, I don't know. It goes from chalk to like cream.
Yeah, and it's definitely made of I think it's made of pure formaldehyde, I think is what they use.
Got to be some chemicals in there.
Sure.
Yeah, and as a child, I knew I was living it up when we had enough in the fridge so that we could add hot dogs, right? You boil the hot dogs and you throw them in. And then if you want to make it extra cheesy, you take those formaldehyde Kraft slices. You guys know those? You know, they come individually wrapped, and you unwrap them, and then you put that on top, and then that's what you, in my case, me and my sister have for dinner, right? This is this incredible formaldehyde chemical Kraft dinner with hot dogs and extra, and I'll put it in air quotes, cheese.
So it's actually aluminum that they add into that to make it nice. It's real good for us.
That's good.
Yeah, that's why it gives you the shits. So we digress, Christopher. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. No, it's relevant. Actually, it's on point. So
I'm glad to hear that.
Right? It's relevant. So anyway, now we're so it evolves over time, and I start kind of learning about online and putting products out maybe about 6-7 years ago, and kind of understand the whole idea around building around keywords and finding, okay, well, a person is searching for this product and I put myself there. Great. And then I realized that, well, now there's a number of different people searching for that one product. So wait a minute, I need to pick an audience, and I need to understand that audience, and then I need to create my message around that audience. So we start doing this. Now, essentially what we make is like, it's like trade show displays, right? But the audience that we chose is marketing firms or people in consumer brands that are doing marketing. So although we're making these displays, actually what our focus has become is how we help marketers to achieve their ROI and to engage with their audiences. And so we talk about, on our website, we talk about all the goals that they're trying to achieve with our products. But I find there's nobody else in the industry, no other print companies that talk in that way. Instead, they go, hey, look, we've got this product. It has this feature and it has this benefit and blah, 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 blah. And we're like, we don't care about any of that. We go, maybe we'll go that has this feature, but it's going to connect to this why or this purpose of what it's going to do for you. And so we're kind of in this place where we're like, well, we're sort of a print company, but kind of not. But we're not really a marketing company. It's like we're finding some weird place in between the marketer and the printer, although we do the printing as well. And so I don't know, it seems like people are creating those products, but there's no like category and there's no category owner. Although as I've been going through your book, which is dynamite, it sort of got me kind of questioning, like, could this be a thing, or is it blown out? And, you know, I'm barking up a weird tree. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So it could be a thing. I mean, I don't know enough about the specifics of your printing and trade show business to get into that, although, you know, we could in a different forum. But here's what I know. Every existing category can be reimagined. And I'll give you a simple example. It's one of my favorites, and we talk about it in the book Play Bigger, is 5 Hour Energy. So what makes 5 Hour Energy is essentially two things at a very high level. One is the entrepreneur Manoj, and you'll excuse me for forgetting his last name. I actually know the original angel investor in the business. The company's called, so the product's called 5 Hour Energy. The company's called Living Essentials. He has this aha moment, this what Anne Miracu at Floodgate Capital calls a market insight. And the market insight goes like this: just because I'm tired doesn't mean I'm thirsty. So he realizes that the solutions on the market at the moment are giant cans of yuck. Red Bull, Monster, of course there's coffee, which I don't think is yuck. I love coffee, tea, et cetera, et cetera. But he has this idea that says, well, just because I'm tired doesn't mean I'm thirsty. And that way of rethinking the problem, called I need a pick-me-up, changes everything. And he makes a legendary decision. He doesn't accept the paradigm of the category as it is. He says he's a new category. He calls it not an energy drink, but an energy shot. Now, you might look at that and go, fuck, potato, tomato, tomato. It actually matters because he reimagined the problem and therefore the solution. And when the world understands that, as they did very, very quickly, he creates a $2 billion category almost overnight. And he's the only product in history the only company in history to have 5 SKUs, 5 products at the Walmart checkout. And in the physical retail world, if there's a more valuable place to be than the Walmart checkout, I would like to know what the fuck that place is. And so new categories often are sitting under our nose, right? It's not that there wasn't a solution called give me a pick-me-up. There was. He thought about the problem differently. And so one of the mantras I love is fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And so I don't know what the answer is for you, Chris, but here's what I know. It sounds like you got a great product and you guys are probably really fucking good at selling it.
Yeah.
But you're doing a shit job at category design. So you're all push and no pull. The market's not coming to you. You're going to it, right? There's this, I don't know if it's in your industry, in the tech business, there's this phrase called go to market. Oh, we got to have a good go to market strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's important. That's what you might think of as ground wars. But we need air wars. Somebody clipping their toenails very vigorously. Fuck. And so, there's a quote from Victor Hugo that says, all the armies of the world cannot stop an idea whose time has come. Category design is about making it your time. It's about creating pull, not push. Now, I'm not saying push doesn't matter. Push matters. Go to market matters. Having a legendary sales team matters. The fact that you know that when you and whoever else at your company gets in front of a prospect and you show them how awesome your fucking trade show carbidingulator is, they get all bonered up and want to buy it. That's great. Fucking A. Congratulations. That's good. That means you're a good entrepreneur. And what I'm saying to you is if you took a step back and said, okay, what is really the problem that we're solving? And how do we think about that problem? And how do we articulate that problem? And I'll give you a simple example. And you'll have to forgive me. I don't know what's in the book. And the reason I don't know what's in the book is A, we handed in the manuscript over a year ago. And B, I live this shit. And so I can't remember what the fuck's in the book and what's not. Yeah. And that's going to wrap this episode. But this is only what, Colin?
This is just part 1. Stay tuned for part 2.